Okay, for this intro video we're going to go to chapter 9. We're going to graph quadratic functions. The only thing we've graphed the entire year has been linear functions. We've only graphed lines. And when we graph lines, it's always in the form y equals mx plus b. We only have an x in it. What we're going to introduce now is we're going to have an x squared in the equations that we graph. So take this down. This is what's called a standard form for a quadratic function. It's ax squared plus bx plus c. This a can never be 0. All that means is if a is never 0, we always have an x squared for a quadratic. Okay, and b and c, they're going to be numbers. They're going to be integers. They're going to be whole numbers. It could be either positives or negatives. Now, the only thing we're going to do on this video is we're just going to graph this y equals x squared, and below it y equals negative x squared. And we're just going to plug points into it and see what the y values are. And when we graph it, we're going to get what's called a parabola. So this is the shape or graph for every quadratic equation. So that's what we're going to derive on this video. Make sure you have this down, the standard form and the parabola. And what we're just going to do right now, let's just graph these two. All right, so I'm going to zoom in here for this y equals x squared. I'm going to zoom into the xy chart, and then I'll graph. All right, so if I plug in this 0, I'm going to plug it right in here. So this is going to give me 0 squared. Well, 0 times 0 is 0. So this is just the origin, 0, 0. If I plug in this 1, I put it in here, that gives me what, 1 squared? Well, 1 times 1 is 1, so this ordered pair is 1, 1. Okay, next I'm going to plug in its opposite. I'm going to plug in negative 1. Now when I plug negative 1 into this, I'm squaring the entire quantity. I have to put parentheses around it. So negative 1 squared, that's going to be negative 1 times negative 1, which is still positive 1. So I'm going to get negative 1, 1. Okay, if I put in 2, I'm going to get 2 squared, which just equals 4. 2 times 2 is 4. So this ordered pair, the x value is 2, the y value is 4. If I put in negative 2, same thing. I'm going to put parentheses around the negative 2 and then square it. And you can kind of see the pattern here. When I put in an x value and its opposite, you're going to get the same y value. Negative 2 squared is negative 2 times negative 2, which is still 4. So this ordered pair is negative 2 and then 4. Okay, so let's just graph these. What do we have? 5 points. So I'm going to move over, and we're just going to graph. Make it a little bit smaller so you can see it. I'm just going to graph these 5 points so you can see them. So this 0, 0, right? We're right at the origin right here. This 1, 1. We go to the right one, up 1. This negative 1, 1. We go to the left 1 and then up 1. 2, 4 is going to be what? To the right 2 and then up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is 2, 4 right there. And negative 2, 4. I just go to the left 2 and up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? And then we're going to connect it. So you see we don't get a line. This is a parabola. Basically what a parabola is, it's a U shape. Basically it looks like a U. Okay? Now, just a couple important things here. This point exactly in the middle, this is called the vertex. Every parabola is going to have a vertex, a point that's exactly in the middle. Now, another thing I'm going to do, I'm going to cut this parabola in half. I'm going to draw a dotted line. Okay? And what this means is, if I draw this dotted line through the vertex, I could fold this left portion of the parabola over this dotted line, and it's going to lie on top of this. So that dotted line, that dotted vertical line, this is called the axis of symmetry. And we'll go over the equation of that axis of symmetry in class tomorrow. So, big picture, when you graph a quadratic, you're always going to get this U shape, which is called a parabola. All right, let's do the other one. Let's do the next one. Now, what I'm going to do with here is, I'm going to put a negative in front of the x squared. Let's do the same thing. Let's blow this up a little bit. Let's just look at the xy chart. All right, there we go. So let's plug, I'm going to plug in the same values. Even if I plug in 0, negative 0 squared is still just 0. So this ordered pair is 0, 0. If I plug in 1, I have negative on the outside, and then I have 1 squared. Now I'm going to put parentheses around the 1, but this negative is just kind of hanging out there on the side. It doesn't go inside the parentheses. Very important key difference. So 1 squared is 1, but then you leave the negative there. That negative is kind of hanging. So this is negative 1. So this ordered pair is 1, negative 1. Okay, when I put a negative 1, I still have this negative on the outside. I'm going to put this negative 1 in parentheses. Well, as we saw before, negative 1 squared is 1, but we still have this negative hanging out, so I'm going to get negative 1. So this is negative 1, negative 1. And then if I put in 2, I have the negative hanging out on the outside. I put 2 in the parentheses. 2 squared is 4. Keep that negative, so it's negative 4. So this ordered pair is 2, negative 4. Okay, and then if I put in negative 2, you can kind of see the pattern here. I have this negative hanging out on the outside. Let's put negative 2 in the parentheses and square it. So this negative 2 squared is 4. Leave the negative, so it's negative 4. And then the ordered pair is negative 2, negative 4. You can see basically what just happened. All these y values I'm going to underline, they just became negative because I have a negative in front of the x squared. So let's just graph it. Let's move it over, make it a little bit smaller. Okay, I'm going to graph these 5 points. So I have 0, 0, put a little check mark. 1, negative 1, I go to the right one, down 1. So I graph that, put a check mark. Negative 1, negative 1, I go to the left one, down 1. Put a little check mark. Then I have 2, negative 4, so I go to the right 2, down 4. This is 2, negative 4 right there, check mark. Negative 2, negative 4, which is right here, put a check mark. So now you can see if you put a negative in front of the x squared, you get the same shape, you get a U shape, but it's upside down. It flips over the x-axis. And same thing, you have the same vertex. And if I draw a vertical line through the vertex, I'm just going to abbreviate this, AOS. This is called our axis of symmetry. Okay, so main thing, when graphing these, you're always going to get a U shape. You always get this U shape, which is called a parabola.